Hey guys, welcome back to another one of my Legion videos. Haven't posted one of these in a while, but Season 3 is back, baby, and we've got to review the premiere of the season on this video, otherwise titled Chapter 20. Now we've got a lot to talk about out of this episode, so I'm not going to waste a lot of time at the beginning of the video, but I'm rather going to jump right into it. The first thing we get out of this episode is the introduction to Switch, and that's right off the bat. The whole setup at the beginning is very 80s. The old television, the Walkman, the fashion. We've got all the recordings, the lessons in time travel. And these feel like they are the new variation this season of the narration by Jon Hamm in Season 2. Now, it is too early to tell, but too bad that so far Jon Hamm did not turn out to be a character on the series. I mean, we were suspecting a lot of characters out of the comics. Hopefully, that might materialize at some point down the road this season, but we're not sure yet anyway. Now, a lot of people started thinking Devon Alomar out of the comics when the name Switch was announced for this season. However, though, during one of those Comic-Cons, WonderCons, one of those cons basically, the producers of the series did make it clear that Switch, the Switch, is more like a new character for the series, and original for the series. So the answer is no, she's not Devon Alomar, she's not based off of Devon Alomar, but she's rather based off of a lot of Legion personalities. Gonna talk about that in a moment though. Now, are you indivisible? Do you want to be whole, of mind and body, free from division? All of those references on the flyers are pretty much references to Division 3. Are you indivisible? Because if you're indivisible, you don't want to be part of Division 3. I mean, it's kind of a little bit poetic. It's not really what Division 3 is all about. It's not about being divisible. But nonetheless, it is definitely the message that David is sending Switch over here. Now, next on these flyers, as the basket is watching, that's all about Fukuyama. Don't trust the mustache, that ties in with it, because that's all about his vermilion. The description as well is very accurate, they are his eyes and ears. All the talk about the milk and the cheese inserted there, on that flyer, does as well make you think of the cow that we kept repeatedly seeing on last season. However though, back then we did have many thoughts about that. Bova, that was the most prominent of those thoughts. None of those thoughts paid off in last season. You never know, this is the final season, a lot might actually pay off in one way or the other. But still on the flyers here, find the pregnant virgin. That's talk for Immaculate Conception. That's the girl that Lenny got pregnant in last season. The girl who states on this episode, penis free for 23 years. Now this was just the first flyer. There's the second flyer. Find the orange fish. The orange fish is a reference to salmon. Salmon is the girl, the, pregnant virgin. But the thing is though, and I'm not saying that's a fact, usually you end up getting some kind of hint towards something out of the comics with these kind of nicknames. So you've got Richard Salmon, that's a possibility. You've got Lemuel Dorcas, that's also another possibility. He's got fish-like abilities and orange eyes, even though he's not a mutant, but rather a mutate. But now there's also the recording that she keeps listening to. The recording has got a lot of statements that could be a reference to something or nothing at all. However though, one of those prominent statements is time is a jungle filled with monsters. Could be about Savage Land out of the comics, a preserve, a jungle of sorts with a lot of monsters. But then again, and as I just mentioned, it could be about nothing. Now the radio communication, that's probably an Easter egg to cell phone or C-Link, a living radio and personality of Legion. Switch herself, she's based off of a lot of Legion personalities. The majority of characters actually that we've seen so far on the series, they do always feel like they're based off of one or more of Legion's personalities. Now with Switch, you've got Chronodon, you've got Time Sync, and you've got the Legion. The closest she is to though at that moment that she is listening to that radio, when she slows time, that's basically Time Sync. Now follow the bus, the yellow bus. I think the choice of yellow over here, that's possibly a reference to the devil with the yellow eyes, kind of like having returning themes. There's a lot of focus on this episode on the color schemes red, blue, and yellow, which all could be a reference to the different series, X-Men Red, X-Men Blue, and X-Men Gold. The node the girl holds when Switch first enters David's mind space reads Lost. That is not about the girl's search for salmon, but rather about her being lost. All these people that David's got at his disposal are lost anyway, and that is how he manages to explore them. He gives them what they need, and he gets what he needs in return. Okay, gonna talk about that later though. Now, the song that we hear over there is Something For Your Mind by Superorganism, which was also part of the EA Sports FIFA 2018 soundtrack. The choice of the song is very fitting, everything considered, considering she is in David's mind space. The way the people in there, as soon as she crawls out of that tube, are inhaling smoke to have their minds altered, that's very last season. The entire thing about peace, love, he makes it in here, points towards her head. That's a reference to Susan in Sunshine. That's basically a Legion personality, and she's got the ability to manipulate people's emotions on the pages of the comics. Now Switch, a time traveler in a room with a big clock on the wall, that's very Chronodon, Legion's personality, Chronodon out of the comics. Remember, Chronodon is a dinosaur with a clock for a face. But the fact though that all of this is happening in David's mind, it all makes it seem more plausible all of these people are, in one form or the other, representative of some personality or the other that he's absorbed over time. And these personalities could be either 1. Personalities of Legion right out of the comics, 2. Originals created for the series, or 3. A mix of the two of them. Now when David first meets Switch, he starts talking about having tri-trust, that's speaking of Sid, and it's better to read people's minds. That's a reference to him changing his approach, kinda going apeshit at the end of Season 2. But next though, we've got the full story of David and Amahl Farouk. Daddy Dearest sent Farouk out of his body and into the astral plane, and Farouk found David and moved in. Now the thing about mentioning this story on the premiere of the season is that we are going to see this story later on in the events of the season. We are going to meet Professor X, we are going to see his struggle and his battle with none other than the Shadow King. So the story that we've been hearing so far, the story that we get to hear once again on the premiere of the season by David, that's all going to materialize into events over the course of this season. Now at the beginning of this episode, we got to watch Switch talk to someone over a TV screen. That person is her father, and that person does make you think of Fukuyama. That's the first thought that came to my mind. But robots is what Switch's dad makes, and that makes you think of Fukuyama once again. It kind of makes you think we're going to find out later on in this season that he is her father. But okay, Division 3 comes for David, led by Kerry Loudermilk. He gets his arm cut, he kills her, turns her to ashes. He's dealing with a SWAT-like team that's out to get him, the cavalry, but then he gets shot in the back by Sid, only to fall dead. That's what he's trying to do, that's what he's trying to achieve. He's not trying to get Sid back, as he did tell Switch. He's trying to make sure that he does not die, that he wins this battle. The other thing over here, though, is that Switch ends up opening a time portal, and that's basically all about the Legion personality, time sync all over again. So that's basically the closest she is to out of Legion's personalities on the pages of the comics. But before I move on from this scene, David recalling the battle between his father, Professor X, and Amahl Farouk, that's all about X-Men 117, an issue out of the comics that highlights that exact battle. Now I am not so sure how much the time travel setup for Switch on the series is inspired by what I'm about to say over here, but let us though remember that Legion is not just an FX production but also a Marvel television production. It's a joint production between the two. But the way that she travels through time, walks a few steps, it's 5 minutes, a few more steps, it's 10 minutes, a few more, it's 30, it's 1 hour, it's 4 hours. The fact that there is this dimension that she goes through in order to travel through time kind of reminds me of the Dark Force dimension, Cloak, the way he crosses distances. He goes into the Dark Force dimension, he travels for a short distance, and then he comes out and he's traveled a way longer distance back in reality. But anyway though, we do get a redo of all the events that Switch went through, since she met Lenny and all the way up until she met David. Love it when David starts to talk to his personalities. But anyway though, with this do-over, Switch is not listening, she's doing the talking. We don't have time, you died the last time I was here, don't be so confident, let's go or you're gonna die. The forces of Division are here. Now yes, they do exist in different worlds, Thanos and Legion, because this is the Fox universe, or whatever you want to call it now, and of course the other one is the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but nonetheless, it felt so good getting that dusting scene with that one Division 3 soldier. However though, even though it feels like a reference to Thanos, it's not really. I do love the fact that they used this one personality of Legion, because on the pages of the comics, the Legion personalities Johnny Gamora and Legion could actually do this. Anyway though, the second time around, David dies again. This time, she travels back in time 2 hours, Switch that is, and she ends up in the astral plane with Amahl Farouk. The first thing that Amahl Farouk goes for is that he is fascinated by her being a time traveler. He does talk as well about having relations with a time traveler. He calls her Geraldine. However though, there is the bit about him and Kitty Pryde out of the comics. Not a relationship, but however there's the entire bit with her and Rachel Summers and her trying to bring about a warning of Hitler and in the process saving Rachel Summers while she's pretty much controlled by Amahl Farouk. So yes, on this episode he might have used the word relations or relationship, but nonetheless, what he's referring to over here out of the pages of the comics is more of an encounter. Now the next thing on this episode is where with the Division 3 team, Patanomy has been downloaded into a robot, which kind of hits us right after Switch calls Amahl Farouk a robot. We've got the Vermilion, who are basically robots. We've got Patanomy downloaded into a robotic body, and we've got the fact that this girl's dad makes a lot of robots. So yeah, chances are David is using Fukuyama's daughter in order to deal with Division 3, Sid, Amahl Farouk, and the entire team. The thing as well is that in his conversation with Clark, the Shadow King refers to Switch as a teenager. There might be the chance that they're pinning all of this on her being a rebellious teenager, you know, rebelling against her father and whatnot. We're gonna find that out later on. But nonetheless though, I'm not really sure she knows that she's facing off with her father. I think all the rebellion is about using her abilities, doing something different than paying attention to her studies, but so far I'm not really sure that she knows that she is facing off with her father in the process. I personally think that if we were right that her father is Fukuyama, then she's gonna realize later on that she is facing off with him. But while still though on Amahl Farouk and Switch, the fact that she managed to get into the astral plane, the fact that she's very big this season, it all makes me think of Blindfold. And Blindfold in the comics is Ruth Aldine, a love interest of David's, and it is possible that they're gonna do the same with Switch over the course of this season, like she's gonna develop feelings for him. But making herself known though, making her presence, her existence known, has made Switch a target as well. So Clark is going out there in order to get David, but he's warned by the Shadow King, hey, if you do get him, she's gonna go back and change everything. She's gonna bring him back. And Clark decides, okay, you know what, we're gonna kill her as well. So yeah, that's basically Clark's answer to the question. How do you surprise someone who can basically go back in time and warn himself? Now on the scene with all the books, when Sid starts talking about David not being her very first boyfriend, David not being the first boy to take advantage, she's probably referring to 1, him taking advantage at the end of last season, and 2, her mother's boyfriend that she framed in the past. I do love this kind of reference because it makes you think, is she the villain or is she the hero? Is Legion or David the villain or is he the hero? Because David is also doing his own thing that's not really good. He's planting these thoughts, these positive thoughts, in the heads of all of these people and then feeding on them, trying to get all the love that he thinks he deserves from all of these people. That's basically how he's no more that person who was angry at the end of Season 2. He's a lot calmer, he's a lot more zen, he's pretty much feeding off the very same positivity that he plants in these people's minds and in these people's emotions. That's also part of what Susan in Sunshine does, so she implants these emotions, or kind of amplifies the emotions of people, in this case positivity, and then she feeds on them, uses them as a source of energy. Now as I come close to the end of this video and coming to think about it, I know I did talk at the beginning about the warning against the mustache, and I did say that's all about the Vermilion, but now that I mentioned Patanomy and the fact that he's got a mustache, I'm thinking, okay, yeah, the warning was about the Vermilion, but there's one mustache, one bigger mustache at play by the end of this episode. He's representative of the entire mainframe, and that's Patanomy. So yeah, Patanomy, more than any other, might be the mustache that we're getting a warning about at the beginning of the episode. But anyway though, close to the end of the episode, we're getting a third repeat of the events that kept repeating throughout this episode, only this time it's from the perspective of Division 3. It's about Clark, it's about Sid, it's about the Shadow King, and of course Patanomy. But this time around though, everything is completely different, the outcome is completely different, the house is completely gone, we get a tooth, Sid finds a tooth, and I think that tooth is all about Switch's tooth that she keeps pushing in every time she's trying to time travel, like maybe that's a side effect of time traveling. But here's one final thing that you've got to love about this episode. The opening credit. Noah Hawley put them there at the very end of the episode, kind of like telling us, okay, you know what, all of this is so much fun, but this is where the real story starts. This is where everyone knows their enemies, and this is where everyone has got an advantage, and this is set up to everything that is to come. Now the other thing over here is there are a couple of questions that I'm thinking about over here. Is Switch a personality of Legion's? Is the personality that he absorbed, or is she still her own person? That's one question that we're gonna ask all the way to the end of the season. How many others are personalities of Legion? Who's real and who's not? That's a question that I've always had since the beginning of the series. We're gonna find all of that as we go forward. I'm hoping all of these questions are gonna be answered before the series is over. However though, this is where I tell you my work here is done, so let me know in the comments what you thought of the premiere of the 3rd season of Legion. Let me know as well if you've got any theories as to how the season is gonna progress. Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Legion or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review, and have a great day.